Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Look, I'm so grateful to be here with you guys today. The DJ is rocking and everything is popping, and I'm seeing conversations going. Look, guys, welcome and thank you guys for joining us for the Face of Leadership Conference. Wow. It's just like 7 years ago when I had this deep, intense feeling and emotion to go into leadership, speaking and coaching and following my calling. I never knew that this day would come when we'll be having a leadership conference and the backdrop of a book that I wrote recently. So I'm just so grateful and I'm humbled by this experience. I'm so humbled by it and just seeing all the chats and all those who are here to support and to share in this leadership journey. For all the speakers who came before, look, it's just awesome, awesome, awesome. And just tapping into the chats and see what's happening. It's beautiful. And I see folks from all over who are joining us today. Come on, put your hands together for yourselves. It's beautiful. You know, when I think about the journey and when I think about the face of leadership, I have to give thanks and a shout out to all those who have poured into me, all those who have gone the extra mile, my parents, sacrifices and all that they've done, and my dear beautiful wife who's in the background working magic as we speak, and all the friends, the coaches, the leaders, my co-workers, you name it, friends and families. You guys have all poured into this, and as a result of that, we have the face of leadership, because the face of leadership has nothing to do with where you're from or what you've been through, but it has everything to do with what you're about to do when you would have cracked the code at the end of the first leadership conference here, the face of leadership. The face of leadership, takes over 8 different elements, and each element, if you engage these elements and if you use these elements, I guarantee you that you'll revolutionize the level of success that you experience in your relationships, in your business, in your organization, and in your team. Because most times we fail to thrive because we fail to impact and go where our teams are. And if you haven't gotten a copy of the book, my man Quinn said it earlier, but I said jump over to Barnes and Noble, Amazon, or Kindle or Google Play Books and grab yourself a copy and join us on this journey as we celebrate the team together. Because my friend Leon would say that this is our tribe, and we're so excited to be here with you guys today. Again, for those who are just joining and without the introduction, I want to say that my name is Jamie Pottinger, and it's a plum pleasure and privilege to be with you here for the next 30 minutes. And I'll be talking to you on a topic that has totally transformed my life, a topic that has allowed me to experience tremendous amount of success, tremendous amount of transformation and growth, impact and influence in all the circles that I've found myself in. And for that, I'm grateful. And also to watch others who have embraced this topic and this content and have allowed this topic and this content to change their lives. So as we think about it today, I'm just so excited. So you could drop something in the chat. If you're enjoying what's happening, drop something in the chat where you're coming from, as we're going to be confronting the inevitable. Yes, we will be confronting the inevitable. You see, as a John Maxwell speaker, coach, and talent optimization expert with Pottingers and Associates Consulting, there's one phrase that I think would sum up what I do, and that's adding value to people's lives while inspiring growth and sustaining excellence, and helping leaders to move forward and understand and accept the greatness that is within them, and not allowing any stereotype or anything to prevent them from walking not only in their promise, but walking into their future with great sense of confidence, clarity, and a greater sense of awareness. Because if you don't know yourself, you can't grow yourself. And when we talk about leadership at Pottingers and Associates, in case you may be saying, you know what are you talking about? I'm not a leader. I don't have 50 people that I'm leading. I don't have any of those things. I'm saying to you that I've copied this from Predictive Index. And leadership for me is leading up, leading down, leading across, and most importantly, leading yourself. Because if you're not leading yourself, then you find it challenging to lead others, because you are the example of leadership that they'll be following through with in terms of moving forward. So let's dive deep into it as we are confronting the inevitable. When I wrote this book, people said to me, Jamie, why would you start off the first chapter on failure? But if I look at my transcript, or if you look at my black box when I'm gone from this earth, you'll recognize that I've had more failures than successes. But I've allowed my failures to drive, to give me the springboard, to move, to pivot, to shift, and to be agile as I navigate my way forward. In a keynote address to a graduating class in 2018, one of my favorite actors, he's no longer with us, Chadwick Boseman, shared one of the most profound statements when it comes down to failure. And as I'm saying it at this point, I feel a little bit nervy, because I feel, when I think about how he passed and everything, and his great contribution to life and the struggles and the challenges that he faced as a leader. For him, as an actor and a leader, for him to use this statement, it speaks volume to the importance of the way that we view failure as an inevitable path towards our success. And he said, and I quote, he said that sometimes you need to feel the pain and the sting of defeat to activate the real passion and purpose that God predestined inside of you. I'm going to repeat that because every time I read this, it says something to me. He said that sometimes you need to feel the pain and sting of defeat to activate the real passion and purpose that God has predestined inside of you. I don't know if you've experienced failure before, but failure has a way of doing some things to you and have you thinking some way that you've never thought of before. You see, failure has a way, the sting of failure has a way to leave you deflated and defeated. It has a way of paralyzing you and helpless, and you feel hopeless. It also has a way of knocking every ounce of confidence from you and have you thinking that you are not worth it. And it may even have you think that that position that you have or the promotion that you've just received is not yours because you failed. And you now find yourself in that corner waving the white flag in the face of failure because you're defeated by it. There's certain types of failure, if we could be honest, and if we could shake the devil and speak the truth, there's some failures that leave that nasty taste in our mouth. You think about somebody who they've been working on a proposal all month and they went home and shared with their family that, you know what, when I'm done with this proposal, I'm certain that I'll be getting a promotion. And they spent night on night working on the proposal. And then when they're finished, the manager look at them and say, guess what? This is utter trash. It belongs in the dustbin. And you ask yourself, what do you say to this person after they have given their best? Because now the manager is saying that this is impractical. It looked good on paper. It sounded good when you spoke of it. But as I've given it second thought, it makes no sense. You know, it's not easy. Or if you should look at it this way, you're in your nice job, you're enjoying your job, and somebody said to you that, you know what, Manju, I'm giving you a new position at this company. And you were told that this company will give you all the bells and whistles, everything that you need. But after that, you know what happens? You get that job, you left your office, you had the corner office. As a matter of fact, you could see the lake, you know, you had autonomy, you had a group of people who loved you. The pay was good, but it wasn't perfect. And you moved on to something that appeared to be quite perfect, only to find a new manager who's not a boss, but he's a boss hole. And he does everything opposite to what you're experiencing before. And this manager micromanages everything in you, and there's nothing that you can do that is correct. And you ask yourself the question, what am I doing? And sometimes when you find yourself in that position, you feel the energy or the drive to just quit, to just turn your back and move back and just not do anything, because that's what failure does to us, when we are in that position. You know, over the past 16 years, I've spent a remarkable amount of time studying great leaders and leaders who have experienced tremendous amount of failure, and leaders who are able to confidently bounce back and do things that others would have just turned their backs and give up on their dreams and their promise and their purpose and their families and their relationships. But when you think about it, you know, at the end of this session, I'm hoping that we no longer view failure as a plague. I'm hoping that we no longer view failure as that monster in the corner of your room whereby you're trying so hard not to do anything wrong to ensure that you keep a perfect record. You see, whether you're an educator, whether you're a manager, whether you're a coach, whether you're in HR, whether you're just a parent, or you're just trying to lead a simple relationship, or you're an entrepreneur who's just trying to move their company to the next level. Today, we're going to break that mindset, and we're going to unravel that code of failure and see exactly how do we demystify what failure has to offer. And we're going to use that information to navigate forward with a great sense of confidence. You see, Jim Rohn, a famous American author and motivational speaker, he said this. He said that the fear of failure forces us to remain in our comfort zone. And that's something that hits me when I read that first, because too often we treat our bout with failure as if it's final. And your bout with failure is never, ever final, because life is a journey. That project is a part of your journey. That job that you just lost is a part of your journey. That interview that you just messed up on is a part of your journey. But life is a journey, and failure is not final. And many times what happens is that we neglect the treasures that can be gleaned from failure, and we miss out on the great lessons that we could use to push ourselves forward. You see, too often we find ourselves in a rocking chair. And I like to talk about the rocking chair mindset, the rocking chair mentality, because what happens with a rocking chair is that it rocks us backwards and forwards, but it takes us nowhere. And we find ourselves in a place of ease, because in a place of ease, we're no longer challenged. In a place of ease, we no longer engage the creative side of ourselves, and we no longer engage with our ideas and our dreams and our teams, because we can't afford to make any mistakes that would allow us to be labeled as a failure. You see, the comfort zone is the worst place that you could find yourself in, because nothing grows in the comfort zone. You see, if you should take a grape and you should place a grape in a comfort zone, what would happen? In a few weeks or months, that grape will become a raisin. And I know none of you guys want to do that. And the next thing is that great ideas, the comfort zone is the boneyard or the graveyard for great ideas. It's the graveyard for innovation. It's the graveyard for talent. It's the graveyard for moving to where you need to be. It's in your comfort zone. And I always warn against this when I speak with leaders. And just recently I was speaking to a group of leaders, and one of the leaders said to me that, Jamie, I'm struggling because I've had a bad month. I've failed. I've messed up. And I said to them that I'm going to share with you something that you could use, because failure is inevitable. And there's nothing that you can do to escape failure once you're alive, because that's how life is. Whether you're leading up, you're leading down, you're leading across, or most importantly, you're leading yourself. Once you are alive and kicking body, you will fail, and you shall fail, and you must fail. But the question is, what do you do with failure? You see, the fear of failure sentence, many of us, we become victim of mediocrity, and it sends us to the land of what I would call, we resign ourselves to the land of mediocrity, and we find ourselves struggling to move forward and to do things confidently. But as I was studying, as I was preparing, as I was going through my research, as I was working on the book, I came across this guy by the name of Dennis Waitley, and he said something that was profound. And if you miss anything in the Face of Leadership Conference, as we talk about failure, the first chapter in the book, I'd like for you guys to write this down, and I want you to hold it in your mind as you write it down. It says that failure should be our teacher, not our undertaker. Failure is a delay, not defeat. It is a temporary detour, not a dead end. Failure is something we can avoid only by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. I'm going to repeat that last part. Failure is something we can avoid only by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. So if you want to be nothing, and if you want to say nothing, then that's the only way that you'll escape failure, because failure is an inevitable part of our path as we travel towards prosperity and expanded latitude for growth, success, and transformation. But the biggest question is, why do leaders treat failure like this? And I know I'm talking to a number of leaders today. You see, too often we see leaders and managers who treat failure as if it's a plague. And if you're a failure, they don't want you to be a part of their team, a part of their organization, because you've experienced failure. And some leaders make it clear that in their interview, after reading your track record, I don't want you part of my team at all. And this attitude further helps to compound the negative culture that only serves to do these things. And if you're a leader now, I'd like for you guys to write this down in your little book, because I know all leaders, you walk around with your notepad on your iPhone or whatever. So I want you to write this down. You see, leaders who embrace the toxic culture of not viewing failure as an opportunity to move your organization and your team forward, what happens is that you stifle creativity, you stifle innovation, you stifle individuality, and you prevent your organization from experiencing groundbreaking solutions. And then you look to the side and you wonder what's happening. But the bottom line is, we all want great results. We all want to have top level employees. We all want to crush all those numbers. But the fact is, life is real. And once you're part of the business of leadership or you're growing, you will make mistakes. You think about it. If my mother had said to my father when I was a baby and I started to stand and walk, she said, tie Jamie's legs together, tie his hands together, because I can't afford for him to fall, then maybe up to this day, I would not be walking. So our parents understood clearly at that stage of our life that failure is inevitable. You see, according to another guy, he wrote something that I found to be so deep and profound. He said, Price, his name is Price Pritchett. He said, and I'll read this. He said that excellence calls for character. It calls for integrity. it calls for fairness, it calls for honesty, and a determination to do what is right. You see, when failure is treated like a plague, when failure is treated like that disease that is contagious, what ends up happening is that members of your team begin to cut corners. They begin to shave the truth. They start to produce less, and teams become toxic. And whenever you're walking in the room as a leader, everybody gets quiet, and they seek to hide away from you, and they fudge the information. And before long, your organization will be relegated into antiquity. And the reason why this happened, because where you don't have transparency, it makes it difficult for you to have growth. Because when those who are reporting to you, they're lying and shaving the truth because they can't afford for you to write them up as a poor employee, then they are going to cut corners. They're going to shave the truth. And what's going to happen in the long run, they'll produce less. And in a matter of time, they're out of the building. And you're like, what on earth is happening? But it's life. And that's what happens when we treat failure like that. But let's be frank. You see, this culture started way before we got into the work world. When we were kids, if, those of us who managed well to hide the facts and lie through our teeth, what would happen is that maybe you would not have gotten a spanking, or you would not have gotten a consequence because you did a good job at appearing to be perfect. And those of us like myself who thought that if I lied at that point, something bad would happen, and I told the truth, what would happen most time, you get a consequence. So right there, you were taught that, the accountability that comes with being honest, being true, and accepting your failure is also an opportunity for you to be placed on that blacklist. But when leaders embrace that culture of not confronting failure, what ends up happening is that you lose your traction and you lose your leverage, and you no longer is in a position to secure discretionary value from your employees, because you want employees who are honest, who are true, and employees who are willing to share their weaknesses and secure your support in terms of pushing them forward. One of the big questions that I get most times when I'm leading out with groups and your people ask, they'll say to me, Zimran, Jamie, what do I do to be an extraordinary leader? What do I do to get great results? People often wonder about the differences between ordinary and extraordinary people, or regular leaders and extraordinary leaders, or dynasty-like championship teams like the Golden State Warriors and other one-hit wonders. The common thread for all teams and all leadership is that we've all experienced failure. But the thing is, the question is, how do we deal with failure? That's what makes a difference, because the leader and the team and the individual who faces failure and deals with it is the team or person who will be ready to bounce back with clarity and to bounce back with confidence and to do things that others, a counterpart, would not be able to do. But in order for us to do that, I want to introduce it before I jump ahead of myself, is that I like to introduce you to a method that I've found that a number of leaders are using it, and it's in the book in the first chapter, the bounce back theory. But before I share with you the bounce back theory, you first have to have an attitude change in order for you to face failure in a certain way, with a mindset that you will using the information to push you forward. You see, Oprah Winfrey said, Oprah, she's one of the most successful human beings across the globe. And she said this. She said that the greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude. So if you can change your attitude towards failure, you will begin, or you would have taken the first step towards generating or crushing your goals or having the kind of results that you need. You see, it's okay to get better. It's not about being perfect, because many times what happens is that in a quest to being perfect in what we're doing, we dodge certain opportunities because we can't afford to make use of certain opportunities that would allow us to mess with a record, because we want to have a squeaky clean record. And if we do that, what happens? We feel as if we are bound for damnation because we have now failed. But when I think about leaders, and when I think about leaders who embrace the bounce back theory, the person who comes to my mind is one of the greatest leaders of all time, one of the greatest presidents of the United States of America. And his name is none other than Abraham Lincoln. You see, Abraham Lincoln was defeated for legislator in 1832. He failed in business in 1833. His sweetheart, for heaven's sake, died in 1835. He had a nervous breakdown in 1836. He was defeated for Speaker of the House in 1838. He was defeated for nomination for Congress in 1843. He was elected to Congress in 1846. He lost renomination in 1848. He was rejected for land officer in 1849. He was defeated for Senate in 1854. He was defeated for nomination for vice president in 1856, and again defeated for Senate in 1858. But guess what? Abraham Lincoln was was elected as the president of the United States of America in 1860. Somebody tell me that he is not the bounce back king. You see, many times when we face failure, we tend to hold ourselves back, and we forget that we are not driven by the actions, or we're not driven by the simple experiences, but we are driven by your purpose. You see, these great leaders like Abraham Lincoln, they embrace the bounce back theory. He was so focused on his greatness. He was so focused on what he was capable of doing. Even when others doubted him, he was confident that he was pushing forward. And I'm almost certain that he also took the time to assess what he was doing and push forward with greater confidence. And that's what we must do, the bounce back theory. You see, the Roman Emperor, Marcus Aurelius, said it this way. He said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So let's jump right into the bounce back theory. You see, when we talk about the bounce back theory, we talk about 5 steps. If you use these 5 steps, there's nothing that can stop you from climbing to the top and taking your life to the next level. You know, and in order for you to win and to secure sustainable growth, you have to have a system. And James Clear said it best. He said this: you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And I'm going to introduce you to a system over the next 5 minutes that if you use the system, I guarantee you that you view failure differently and you secure greater wins no matter where you are. The first step is you got to accept failure. You got to accept failure. You see, failure is an inevitable path that we must travel. You see, it simple means that when you accept failure, it's not saying that you're a failure. It's just saying that you are not fully equipped to take on the path that you are on, and you may need to reassess what you're doing. You know, sometimes it might have been as a result of poor planning. It might be poor decision making or having a bad team. But by accepting failure, it puts you in a better position to strategize and to move things forward. And the second step is you have to assess failure. You see, many times when we face failure, we wave that white flag, we go in the corner, we go in the fetal position, and we just retreat and we give up on our dreams and everything. We give up on the project. And sometimes we use that experience to hold us back. But John Maxwell said it this way. He said that experience isn't the best teacher. Evaluated experience is. So after assessing your failure, you use that information to push your life, to push your dreams, and to push your goals forward. It's leaders who are committed to winning are always willing to go back and look at the tape to see exactly what they did and how they could maximize on where they are. You see, a matter of fact, they will spend hours. And you think about championship team, for example, the recently concluded NBA championship. Golden State Warriors, they lost the first game to the great Boston Celtics. And many think that they were over, that was it for them. But guess what happened? Steve Kerr and his team, they went back to the drawing board, they assessed their failure, and they came back. And guess what? They were crowned eventually as the champions of the NBA for this year. And what we have to do, though, when it comes on to assessing our failure, is that we have to evaluate what we're doing. We have to assess it. You see, assessment gives you the perfect picture of yourself, of your team, and of your effort. It also exposes you to your weaknesses as a leader. It also exposes you to some things that you've missed. It also shows you exactly some opportunities that you've missed. Assessing your failures also bring you closer to a place whereby you will have greater confidence in terms of moving forward. And the third step in the bounce back theory is anchored in your purpose. Sometimes, and I'd like for you guys to write this one down, sometimes you have to ditch your plan and embrace your purpose. Your plan might be your map, but your purpose is your compass. You can't do anything with your purpose, just without your purpose. Because remember this, plans will fail, your teams will fail, leaders will fail, relationships will fail. But if you stay true to your purpose, you will win, and you will win often. You see, sometimes, too often, I see leaders and people, they're so stuck on a given train that is no longer taking them to their destination, or they remain in an environment that is no longer fertile, or they're building a relationship that is no longer beneficial to the growth or the development that they need. You see, what happens when we do that, we end up missing out on opportunities, and we block ourselves from doing what we were called to do. And the fourth step is acquire a network. You see, if the African proverb said it this way, it said that if you want to go fast, go it alone. If you want to go far, go it together. Sometimes we think that we can do it by ourselves. But when it comes on to failure, if you don't want to be defeated by failure, the best move for you to do is to acquire a network of people who will support you when you're down, persons who will hold you accountable, and persons who are there to help you to stay on track when you're focusing on a goal. And we jump to the next step is, and before we go there though, when you have a positive network and when you have a network of people who are supporting you, what they will do, they will give you the credibility and the support that you need to go to the top. You see, without a network of supportive people, when you don't have a network, what ends up happening is this. When you don't have a network, it's almost like you're trying to climb a 20-story building and you don't have the stairs to climb. You don't have elevators, you don't have ropes, and you don't have stairs. So by the time you get to the top of the building, you are now at the top of the wrong building. But if you have the right network, your network would have assisted you in taking you to the top, and then you'd be in a position to dominate the results that you need. And the final one is creating an action plan. There's nothing beats having an action plan. Zig Ziglar, he said it this way. He said that you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. You see, when you are in motion, many times when we think about the challenges on action plan, we are like, I know what I'm about to do. But James Clear, in his book, Atomic Habit, he said something that is so profound. He said that people are in two phases. They're in the phase called the motion and then the action phase. You see, if you take yourself and you head to the gym and you ask the gym instructor, how can I get signed up and what's the right sneakers to wear? That's putting things in motion. But if you get signed up and you head to the gym and you start working out, then that's putting action to your plans. And that's what you need to do in terms of action plan creation. You see, after activating the power of your network, it is time for you to create an action plan. And the first thing is that you have to have clearly defined goals. You have to have clear steps that you're planning and taking in terms of moving forward. And you have to secure the right team of people who are willing to support you no matter where you are. And then in the process of doing that, you have to evaluate your steps, because if you fail to evaluate your steps, you take the same steps and end up getting the same results. And then finally, you have to set a timeline for your goals, because it's only by setting a timeline that you win, and you win big. After doing those things, I guarantee you that you will face or view failure differently. But as we conclude here, I'd like to share this with you. I think it was Jim Rohn who said it, and he said that the greatest achievers are not those who fail to fail the least. Let me repeat that. The greatest achievers are not those who fail the least. Greatest achievers are those who are least frightened of failure. Don't allow your fear of failure to hold you back. And if you fail, bounce back and follow through, because quitters bounce and winners bounce back and follow through. And sometimes you must ditch your plan and embrace your purpose. Even though your plan is your roadmap, remember that your purpose is your compass. And sometimes you may just need to acquire new skills to take on the journey. Sometimes you need to change your environment, because you may be planting seeds in an environment that is not fertile. And when you feel like surrendering to failure and wave the white flag and give up, remember that the muscle for success is self-discipline. Keep pushing on and embrace the bounce back theory. And once you do that, you can tell failure without any fear in your mind that quitters bounce, but winners bounce back and follow through. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's a plumb pleasure and privilege having you guys here with me for the first Face of Leadership Conference. Please go on out and copy yourself of the copy of the book, The Face of Leadership. And let's expand this tribe of leaders who are facing life head on, regardless of where you're coming from. Because remember this, leadership is what? Leading up, leading down, leading across, and leading yourself. And let nothing stop you from showcasing the fact that you are the face of leadership.